instances of paranormal phenomena have been reported in this desolate place. Events that may reflect the area's tragic past.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Rangers Podcast, where we talk all things paranormal. I'm Ken James, and this is Jason McKittrick.
Hey, folks.
And if it can haunt, howl, or dwell in the dark, we want to talk about it. And tonight, it's kind of a little summer flavor, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Totally. And we're going to do our top 6 each horror video game favorites.
Yes.
So these are the boys that, that made our bones in the video game world, horror video game world.
Absolutely. And summertime was when I did most of my gaming.
Right.
It was a thing. Like, you could stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning. Your parents check in on you, like, oh shit.
Yeah. Luckily, we didn't have that. It was just like, what? Go to bed.
Yep.
Yeah, but we're gonna go over a list of both of our 6 favorite horror video games. But before we get into that, we got a little double feature of haunted headlines. All right, guys, so as if handed down from on high, a little article came my way this morning, and it is Friday the 13th, the game, expiration of license. So the game that came out, when did that come out? 2017?
Something like that.
Around 2016, 2017, Friday the 13th, the game came out. Now, it was one of those...
I backed the Kickstarter.
Yeah, right. Jay backed the Kickstarter. He got 2 licenses for us to play. Gave me one of them. Super pumped for it. But it did turn out to be disappointing because they stopped running updates. They were supposed to add a story mode. A bunch of other stuff was going to happen, and they just kind of were like, we don't care. But so the article goes,
that's that company.
Yeah, right. So
it's Ilphonic.
Yeah, something like that. The time has come. Our license for Friday the 13th will expire on December 31st, 2023. On that date, Friday the 13th, the game will no longer be available for sale, both physically and digitally. The game will, however, continue to function through at least December 31st, 2024. If you already own it, that is. At this time, we've made the decision to reduce the price to $4.99 for the base game and 99 cents for each piece of DLC content. We will continue to offer the title and the content at that price point right up until it's removed from digital and physical storefronts on December 31st, 2023. We would like to thank our community for the dedication they've shown to Friday the 13th, the game, and Gun Interactive as a whole, and we are happy that the game will live on for a while longer and continue to be enjoyed to anyone owning the game already.
Yeah, it's Gun Interactive.
Gun Interactive, yeah.
Yeah, they haven't updated in a long time, and I also know that whole license and franchise is that's been in and out of court, so I'm sure that had something to do with it too.
Right.
But hey, man, I had fun with it for a while. It says continue to function. I mean, it better fucking function. We paid for the thing,
right?
I'm sure the online does it, but you can still play with bots. I mean, you can't just take the thing down.
Well, that's what they're still pretty much. They don't know. That's the thing. They're unsure. So that's what they're saying. Up until the December 31st, 2024. You'll still be able to play it, but we don't know what's going to happen after that. But before that, too, they had that whole beef. There was supposed to another game that was going to be Friday the 13th. They had the licensing, or they were using it, and then
right.
I think Gun Interactive were working on a different game that wasn't called Friday the 13th.
Okay.
And were able to get the license for it, so they took this other game that actually looked better, but they didn't get the license because they didn't have the juice, and brought it over to their game. So sorry, gang, forever plays that game and who still is into it. It's going the way of the dodo.
Yeah, as things do. But for our second haunted headline, speaking of degenerate gamers, John Carpenter He's got a new game coming out called Toxic Commando, which they just released a trailer for. It looks fun. And they're describing it as a science experiment to extract power from Earth's core goes horribly wrong, waking the so-called sludge god, an entity capable of transforming people into zombies. Yep, I can already see what this game is. It's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be a first-person shooter, but it's just going to be hordes of zombies, lots of nasty monster stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, I might give it a shot. I mean, the trailer looks kind of okay, but you never know.
You never do. You never do.
So if you're a Carpenter fan, and I can assure you he puts more thought into video games than he does anything else these days. Which, you know, he's the one that didn't he say that he sunk like some crazy thousands of hours into Doom or some shit? Wasn't that him? Pretty sure.
It might have been. I don't know.
It's him and Trent Reznor both. It's like, yeah, we're just gonna do this. It's like, oh, okay, guys.
Yeah, all right, fellers.
Yeah, but all
right, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we got for some video game themed news for this evening.
Yeah, so I mean, those both came up today, and I was like, oh, perfect. These are perfect for our haunted headlines here at Other Dangerous Podcasts, especially when we're talking about our favorite horror video games.
Speaking of which, before we get into our picks, you want to tell folks about a little creature known as the creepy basement goblin?
I do. So there was a time where your boy, I ended up usurping my older brother's room when he moved out, and it was the basement. It was a bedroom that was made in the basement, and I liked it cold and dark, Jason.
Don't we all?
Yeah. So I would frequent, many summers and most of my time in my bedroom in the basement, cold and dark, playing video games.
As you do.
Legend has it, he also beat Street Fighter, like the one way through, like, Mortal Kombat has the towers.
Yeah. As
he was sleeping. And it happened. So yeah, I was actually dubbed the creepy basement goblin for a while because my propensity for horror and video games and dungeon cavernous-like conditions while I played them.
Yeah, not coming out of there for hours at end.
Yeah. I would slink up to the bathroom to grab and then grab a bag of chips and a soda and be like,
exactly.
And go back down.
Playing those demonic games.
Yeah, like I did. Ooh, there's one I missed. From my my list, but all right.
Oh, I think I know the one you're talking about. Onimusha?
Onimusha, absolutely.
That was a great game, man. I mean, horror. Yeah, I guess it kind of was horror. I mean, I had a bunch of honorable mentions, but oh yeah, Onimusha. I should have thought that one too. But there's so many, man. There's so many.
It's tough.
I would be surprised if a part 2 eventually comes out.
Sure. Well, there was a part 2. The dude who played Leon from The Professional.
No.
He was actually.
There'll be a part 2 of
our
favorite horror video games.
No, my bad.
There was a 2. There was a 3. And there was a weirdo 4 one. And there was a fighting game. I had them all. I love that series.
Right. Fair enough. All right. Well, it's tough to do these because you have to kind of give credence to the classics too. So you don't want to skip over those. But I'll go with my first one, guys. It's It almost changed the game. I think it did change the game. Resident Evil, right?
Oh, sure.
This is before zombies were a craze again. This was just straight up this government group of like soldiers in what looked like a giant haunted house, and there's zombies.
Yeah, so, we hadn't seen zombies in a while when that came out.
At that point, the last one was like what? Return of the Living Dead 3 with the chick,
something like that.
But a little backstory here: Resident Evil, or Biohazard in Japan and Southeast Asia, is a Japanese horror game media franchise created by Capcom. It consists of survival horror, third-person shooter, and first-person shooter games, with players typically surviving in environments inhabited by zombies and other frightening creatures. And that's the thing too, like the mini bosses and bosses.
Oh yeah.
That's like that Resident Evil, especially in the original.
The tank controls.
Yeah, dude. Like Tyrant was just so scary, and you go back now and you look at it, and it's all like pixelated and octagons.
Yeah, but
and shit,
you know what, man? I think that like it was almost more effective because like your imagination had to fill in those blanks. You know what I
Right.
mean? It was like it was giving you enough, and it came this far, but you had to come the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And I remember, man, like my buddy was on PlayStation 1. He's like, dude, I just got Resident Evil. I was like,
Yeah.
what's that? He's like, dude, he's like, it's insane. And when he put it on, I was
Right.
like, what?
Well, the first Resident Evil was created by Shinji Mikami and Tukuro Fujiwara and released for the PlayStation in 1996. It is credited for defining the survival horror genre and returning zombies to pop culture. With Resident Evil 4 in 2005, the franchise shifted to more dynamic shooting action, which is still Resident Evil 4, achieved acclaim and influenced the evolution of survival horror and third-person genres, popularizing the over-the-shoulder third-person view. Now, Resident Evil 1, a funny story about this, you'd go to Blockbuster all the time, right? You would go there and like, you tried every game, you knew the ones you liked, but then you were like, I know this, I have this. And then I saw Resident Evil for PlayStation, so I rented it. My dad took me, it was just me and my dad. My brothers didn't know about it. No one, I played it for a while and I was like, I can't get down with this. I thought it was something different. I was, I looked at the cover, I looked at the back, and I thought it was going to be, something different. And it was before my chops got, where they were. And then, like a month or two later, Chris rents it and was like, you hear about Resident Evil? I was like, oh, I rented this. Like, forever ago. He's like, well, you can't even get it now. We had to wait, And I, like, we finally got it. And then then I was like, oh, that's what this is like,
Yeah. Yep.
I was 9. I was 9,
Oh, you're not. You were, geez, Nora's age.
Right.
That should be 9. It should be 9 next week.
Playing it alone in a bedroom.
Speaking of video games, I this kid plays, and like I came around the corner, and she's like knee deep in Breath of the Wild. I was like,
oh, nice.
All right,
yeah,
nice. So no, man, that game, I remember same. I got that and Twisted Metal. Around the same time, and those were just two that were just like, this was like some of the defining PlayStation 1 era games.
And then it had that iconic scene, man, when the first zombie you see
that like looks over its shoulder. Yeah.
You're like, money in the bank.
You look at it now, it's almost like Virtua Fighter graphics.
Yeah, like it literally is. It's Virtua Fighter.
Nice, good pull.
Thanks,
good pull.
Man.
I mean, you couldn't have this list without that game.
No, not at all.
So for my first pick, I love the entire series of these. I even like the ones that are not very good because I love the aesthetic. But my favorite one out of the series, Silent Hill 2. This game, and by most, is considered to be the best of the series. Oh my God. I remember when I played this for the first time. I was in college, 2001, and I was like, this is a game? I was like, this is a game?
Yeah.
So before we get into it a little bit, 2001 survival horror game was developed by the legendary Team Silent, and it was put out by the Konami Computer Entertainment Group in Tokyo. This is a deep story. I assume you played through it.
Yeah.
So it's got this narrative that was inspired by the Russian novel Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, and some of the influences on the game's artistic style include the work of David Lynch and Adrian Lin, specifically the film Jacob's Ladder, which is like one of my favorite films of all time. So I was like primed for it. Plus the paintings of Francis Bacon, which is also my favorite fine artist, and then also Andrew Wyeth. So it's like all this
perfect
stuff
storm.
It was, and this game lands in my lap, and I'm like, what is this? And it takes you through these really strange like settings and like psychological things, and you take control of a guy named James Sunderland, and he comes back to Silent Hill after receiving a letter from his wife who died 3 years previous. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I don't want to say more than that, because if you haven't played this game, the end scene, well, all the end scenes there's a few different endings you can get, but like when you figure out what happened, it's like, what in the fuck? And then you realize that the town is actually like, it's kind of like purgatory,
right?
Or your own version of hell. And it's just such a great game, and it introduced to us, the now iconic Pyramid Head and the Bubblehead nurses, and some of the hospital location, and all these. I can still hear like whenever you get like an item, it's like really like really faded, like so good. So good. But like I said, it has a lot of these strange themes like grief, guilt, and punishment, which is something that wouldn't been in games before. And then and it confronted other themes like mental illness, lust, love, and abuse specifically. Which, if you play it, you see. It's just and it would like it was an exploration of how it affects people. So it just this game was just this is my on my Mount Rushmore of just games. And luckily, I hope it comes out soon. But a remake was announced on October 19th of 2022 during the Silent Hill transmission event. It's going to be made by the Bloober team. We don't know who that is. They must be a new studio, but it's going to have more contributions by the original artist Masahiro Ito, who was known for creating the look of the games, and composer Akira Yamaoka, which his songs are like what is it, every horror game probably pulls from his style. So that's coming out on PlayStation 5 sometime this year, hopefully.
Hell yeah.
But that's Silent Hill 2, man. If you've never played that game, do yourself a favor. I mean, maybe I don't know how good the remake's going to be, but they try to play that game. That is an experience.
And you missed your opportunity the last couple of days to play it while outside has looked like it.
Dude, last night I was outside walking and I was like, yep, Silent Hill.
Yeah. Canadian wildfires. All right, so on to the next one. This is like smack dab in the creepy basement goblin era. I remember this. I was like, this is a game? They're doing this now? Like, I think it's right up my alley. It was called Nightmare Creatures.
Yeah. Forgot about that game.
A funny story. The first rap group I was in, I named Nightmare Creatures.
The first rap group you were in.
First rap group I was in. Been in plenty. But yeah, we were Nightmare Creatures. It was sick. But, so, little backstory real quick. Nightmare Creatures is a 1997 survival horror video game developed by Callisto Entertainment for PlayStation, Microsoft Windows, and Nintendo 64. A sequel, Nightmare Creatures 2, was released 3 years later, and there's a mobile phone version, apparently. But, the second sequel... Yeah, right. The second sequel, Nightmare Creatures 3, Angels of Darkness, was canceled in 2004. So, I mean, that happens.
Yep.
But the plot, I'll give you the plot if you never played this. It was just sweet, man. It was just good. But the story behind Nightmare Creatures draws upon gothic horror elements in the 19th century and begins in 1666. When a devil-worshipping cult called the Brotherhood of Hecate were conducting sinister experiments in London so as to take over the city and then the world. The Brotherhood tried to develop an elixir that would endow them with superhuman powers. However, rather than creating their intended superhumans, their experiments instead created grotesque monsters called nightmare creatures. When they decided to use these creatures as an army of conquest, one of their members, Samuel Pepys, set their headquarters on fire, resulting in the First Great Fire of London. The game takes place in 1834 when London falls victim to several evil occurrences. Monster sightings are reported along with news of people mutating into ungodly creatures, and that the dead are walking from the graves and walking among the living. All of London is in a panic and vulnerable to the scheme of Adam Crowley, a mad scientist and occultist enlisted to help the Brotherhood. A book is dropped off at the home of Ignatius Blackwood, a priest and occult expert. He finds it in his lost diary of Samuel Pepys, which contains the Brotherhood's research. Knowing he needs to help Ignatius send the diary to the renowned American immunologist Dr. Jean Franciscus of New Orleans, who shows up with his daughter Nadia Fariscus. With the doctor murdered and the book stolen, Ignatius and Nadia are at his funeral, where they are approached by a man who gives them a note reading, "Know about Adam Crowley? Brotherhood of Hecate, HVHJ." Ignatius and Nadia head out to the address listed on the note, hoping to seek out Crowley and neutralize the monsters. Basically, it's a third-person hack 'em, slash 'em shooter, more dynamic than the Resident Evil controls. So you weren't just kind of like linear. You know what I mean? You can move around more like Kratos would. Let's say a Kratos would. And there were all these wacky monsters where you would like shoot their arms and limbs to get them down. And
wasn't it like the whole thing took place at night too? Wasn't like there's like cemeteries and stuff. Yeah. I played it. It wasn't like a huge game for me. I definitely played it, but I remember like like
the whole thing was
cemetery battles
London-y,
or something.
cemetery.
Yeah.
You were in like it all looked like where Jack the Ripper was going crazy. Like
Okay.
it was just, it all looked like
Whitechapel.
that, right? Yeah, and you're just like, all right, and these monsters were coming out of nowhere, and you were like, you're blasting them with your different holy weapons and stuff.
So anyway, I just start blasting.
Yeah. So anyway, I start blasting, saying a prayer or whatever they told me to do. But it was definitely a fun one right up my alley, and I named it Rap Group after it.
Well then, they should be honored.
You're damn right, my friend.
All right, so the second pick for me, this is Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth. Now, we're pushing 20 years on this release. This came out in 2005, and it's still the best Cthulhu Mythos game, arguably. Recent releases like the Sinking City and the new Call of Cthulhu were like mostly disappointing because nobody wants to go like full in deep,
Yeah.
Yeah. They just go half.
Yeah, halvesies. I get it.
So this game, man, this is for folks who don't know, this is based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft, who I can't stop talking about, author of the Call of Cthulhu and creator of the Cthulhu Mythos. It's a reimagining of Lovecraft's The Shadow over Innsmouth, taking large inspiration from Chaosium's Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. It's set mostly in the year 1922, perfection. The story follows Jack Walters, a mentally unstable private detective hired to investigate in Innsmouth, a strange and mysterious town that has been cut itself off from the rest of the United States. It also includes aspects of the story The Shadow at a Time. It's so good. I can't believe that this is not like, where are the sequels? Like it was clearly created by people that love the source material. But my favorite part of the game was that there's like, you lose sanity in the game, and this is one of the first games that actually had that kind of like mechanic,
right?
And like if you look directly at upsetting things in the game, like you'd start to like hallucinate and like freak out, and like there's like this one part in the game where like if you stay next to this Cthulhu idol for too long, like you just go insane and you die. And it's like that's right from the stories, like
right.
Human consciousness can't handle this stuff. So it was just one of my favorites. And there's investigation aspects to it, but then there's also like waves of deep ones that you fight, and then Dagon himself shows up, comes out of the water, and like you're on the boat. I mean, you look at it now, it's goofy as shit, but at the time I was like, this is awesome. And like I said, I don't know why there's no sequel to this. And then I look back and it's like, oh, there were all of these sequels planned. There were 2 sequels planned for this one that was going to be At the Mountains of Madness, one that was going to be I think more related to Call of Cthulhu, the actual story, but they said it didn't do enough sales, which is crazy though, because you're looking back and it did great sales. And listen to the description of the next sequel. Like, how did this not get made? It was going to be inspired by At the Mountains of Madness, and the game was to be a survival horror and first-person shooter set in the 1930s and taking place in various locations, including Germany and Antarctica. And its protagonist would be a Miskatonic University archaeologist attempting to stop the Nazi occultists from searching the Elder Things City. Like, Jesus Christ, why don't we have this game? I want it right now. I know you don't know all this stuff yet because I haven't gotten to it yet, but amazing. So it's a shame that 2005 was the last like solid Cthulhu Mythos game that we got, and it's time for someone to like put their shit together and really give us like the right experience, because I've had it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, no, it was a good time.
Yeah, no, it totally was. No, I never played it. No, it sounds great. I back then I was just like HP who,
that's most people, and it's fine. Like we said before, the subject matter kind of like makes it exclusive on its own. People are like, I don't know what this is. There's no movies. There's no good movies.
Yeah, what movies is it from? Exactly. What movie series is it from?
All right, buddy. What do you got next?
Yeah. So this next one, man. This one, I had a haunted headline story playing this one, man. It's called The Suffering, and
oh, geez.
Yeah, this
I
one,
never got to play it.
Oh man, there's 2 of them, but this one, God,
infamous.
Yeah, all right. So It was a first and third person shooter. Is a horror video game developed by Surreal Software for PlayStation 2, Xbox, and Microsoft Windows. The game was published by Midway for all those same systems. I'm not going to go too deep into everything there, but basically they stopped making them because the company went into bankruptcy before it was repurchased. But the suffering centers on the story of Torque, a prisoner on death row for murdering his ex-wife and 2 children, a crime that he possesses no memory of committing. Shortly after he arrives in Abbott State Penitentiary on Carnate Island. First off, Abbott State Penitentiary is based off of Eastern State Penitentiary. The game came with a documentary about Eastern State Penitentiary and how they designed the prison in the game after it and the island after Alcatraz.
And the main character is supposed to be based off of Chris Benoit.
Oh my god, dude.
Oof, rough. Yeah.
No, because he talked a lot. But
right.
Yeah, so basically, oh man. That just threw me off. But
you're welcome.
Basically the game begins as the silent protagonist Torque is escorted by CEO Ernesto Alvarez onto death row in Abbott State Penitentiary in Carnate Island off the coast of Maryland, an island with a long troubled history. So he's been sentenced to death. And as he's entering his cell, an earthquake rocks the prison, and moments later, all of the inmates on death row, except Torque, are killed by malefactors, a grotesque race of supernatural creatures manifested from various forms of deaths that took place on Carnate Island and are bent on purging any life that they run into. So that was a cool, a cool twist there. So it's almost like a Hellraiser in a bit there, where like these, all the prisoners are various forms of how they died there. Yeah, but I can even just tell you the story from mine. I don't even need to read this. So basically there's a doctor that works on there, and he did all these experiments, and you keep encountering his spirit who's responsible for all this stuff. And basically you travel around trying to rehash your memories of what actually happened to you. And it wasn't you who killed your family. It was
Chris Benoit.
It was Chris Benoit. Oh my god. Who was basically possessed him, and you're wrongfully accused, but you are a bad man who does bad things, and you fight your way through all these monsters. And it's not one of those like good guy wins kind of stories because you're a bad guy.
Yeah.
But in the same breath, it's just it was great to be in Eastern State Penitentiary, basically fighting monsters, and
that's great.
All wild. And the one thing that happened, the one part you get to this little island like around there, and you're in the cemetery, and I'm playing it, and you're like, when you kill these certain ones, they let out this crazy scream. And I told it on here before, I think. Yeah. But it was just me in my house. I had all the windows closed and all the doors were open, and I was home alone, and I killed one of the things, and all the upstairs doors slammed, including my bedroom door. So naturally, I get up, I'm in my boxers, I grab my car keys, because at this point I'm like 16. I'm like in my boxers, I run out the door in my shoes, I go out to my car, I drive around the block, call my buddy, like, yo, come to my house, we gotta grab a baseball bat and go in there. He's like, nah, I'm at my dad's, which is in like Horsham. So I was like, all right, whatever. Sween, shout out. And then I ended up going back to my car, grabbing my baseball bat, like going in the house, like, hello, I go to bed, all that. Yeah. And then like my mom and Chris come home for wherever they had like dinner or something, and I'm like telling them about it, and Chris is like, shut up. I don't care about your video game demonic stories. Put your baseball bat back in your trunk. I hate you. Cool. It was rough. Then I went back and I played it again. So
yeah, I mean, you were fine.
Yeah, I was cool. You were fine. Mommy was home. I was all right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. Speaking of Eastern State Penitentiary, every year for Father's Day, I take a trip with the kids. We go do something fun, and this year we're going to do Eastern State, the historical tour, because my kids are way into like urban exploration. I'm like, we're not going to an actual like abandoned, like fucked up place here in Philly. I was like, that's a way to get murdered. I was like, Dad, have you ever heard of Kensington? I was like, what are you, insane?
Yeah, stop it.
No.
All different kinds of zombies and monsters out there, man.
For real. But no, we're going there this year.
It's like fucking the Thriller video out there, but way less fun.
Way less fun.
So I mean, that's awesome. You're going there, and the girls will enjoy it. It's a wild place, man.
Oh no,
So-
because Lil was like, "Oh, I would like to." She's like, "I want to go for my birthday this year, which is until September." She's like, "I want to go to an abandoned place." I was like, So I was like, "Hell, I can't take her somewhere like that." So I was like, and then it just dawned on me. I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Eastern State, perfect."
yeah, beautiful.
And there's like now there's beer gardens in there and all this like fun other shit. So
yeah.
yeah, I'll get sauced and then like go walk around and talk about ghosts.
Yeah.
This
You're
is
like,
where we
this-
did the skin breathing.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we sure
Well, I
did.
didn't. You and Chris did. I
Yeah.
didn't breathe anything through my skin, so
Okay,
I tried.
it's all good.
I didn't
All right, so
evolve. I didn't evolve yet.
It's all good, bud. You can't be in on all the adventures.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, so my next pick, 2014, the only game that's ever given me like anxiety that I had to turn it off because it was freaking me out, Alien Isolation. Dude.
Yeah, I played it.
Released by Creative Assembly and published by Sega for PlayStation 3, 4, Windows, Xbox 360, and Xbox One. This one was based on, the Alien film series, and the game is set 15 years after the events of the original 1979 film and follows engineer Amanda Ripley, the daughter of Alien protagonist Ellen Ripley. So yeah, like if you've seen the director's cut of Aliens, you'll see that scene where she finds out her daughter is already like 80 years old and dead because she was in space for so long. That's basically where they were able to get this character from. And so she's she investigates the disappearance of her mother aboard the space station Sevastopol, this huge like space station. Once inside, Amanda discovers that the station has fallen into disarray due to an alien creature on the loose and must find a way to escape. It's more about like stealth and sneaking around. It truly is survival horror because like they like in the beginning of the game. Did you play it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right in the beginning, they're like, yeah, you can't hurt the alien. Like you can escape it, and you're gonna die a million times for no reason sometimes.
And you're gonna get super frustrated figuring out where to go for the first 3 hours. You're just like,
yes, before the alien even shows up.
Yep.
And then when the alien does finally show up, it's on, and it's like, it's like you'll just be standing there doing something like, okay, I got to the keypad, and as you're doing it, you're like, huh, and then you look down,
Yeah.
the tail comes through your chest. You're like, God damn it!
Yeah. It's like Outlast. It's like Outlast, but with aliens.
Yes, and the big thing about it was like the most advanced game AI they had created before up until that time, and the thing would literally hunt you, and it was just amazing. You make a little bit of sound that destroys you, but then you can look later on. You could just like lure it. You could like there's like a sound making thing. You could throw it where like other guys were, and it would come and kill those guys, and then probably kill you too.
Yeah. Most likely.
A masterpiece. This game is a masterpiece. I loved every minute of it, and this is another game. Like, why the hell didn't we get a sequel to this game? Like, it did amazing numbers. They knew it did amazing numbers, and then Sega was like, "Oh, it didn't sell well enough." It's like, why are you lying? Why are you always lying?
Yeah, why are you always lying? No, because they did they put all their eggs in that. What was it? The troopers or whatever. What was it called? The Marines.
Oh, Colonial Marines. That was
Colonial
a
Marines.
wet fart of a game.
Exactly.
They were like, no, this is what everyone wants. It's like, yeah, when it's
Yeah.
done well. But then these
Yeah.
guys come along and do the survival horror that's like, a literal masterpiece. Well, no.
Yeah.
And then now what do we get? We just get Colonial Marines. They just keep remaking and remaking.
Yep.
And, oh, this one's
Yep.
better. It's like, yeah, but I don't want to play this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Stop it with this.
Yeah, seriously. So
Yeah, no. Awesome game, spooky stuff. I'm into it.
no, and just heart racing. Like I literally had to take breaks sometimes. I was like, dude, I can't deal with this fucking part. so there's Alien Isolation.
Speaking of masterpieces, Jason,
Okay,
we're going to Bloodborne, buddy.
game I can't do. It's
Yeah,
too hard.
I've become a From Software snob. I become one of those guys.
Yeah,
The Souls-like games. It's so hard and it's so gratifying when you like start making progress. But Bloodborne is a 2015 action role-playing game developed by From Software and published by Sony Computer Entertainment for the PlayStation 4. Bloodborne follows the player character, a hunter, through a decrepit Gothic Victorian-era inspired city of Yharnam, whose inhabitants are afflicted with a blood-borne disease which transforms the residents called Yharnamites into horrific beasts. Attempting to find the source of the plague, the player's character unveils the city's mysteries while fighting beast and cosmic beings. The game is played from a third-person perspective. Players control a customizable protagonist, and the gameplay is focused on strategic weapon-based combat and exploration, to say the least, my friend. Players battle various enemies while using items such as trick weapons and firearms, exploring different locations, interacting with non-player characters, NPCs, and unraveling the city's mysteries. Bloodborne began development in 2012 under working title Project Beast, bearing many similarities to From Software's Dark Souls series. Bloodborne was inspired by the literary works of authors H.P. Lovecraft and Bram Stoker, and the architectural design of real-world locations in countries such as Romania and Chechnya. Bloodborne was released in March 2015 and received critical acclaim, with praise directed at its gameplay, particularly its high difficulty level, atmosphere, sound design, Lovecraftian themes, and interconnected world design. Some criticism was directed at its technical performance at launch, which was re-released in November 2015. By the end of 2015, the game had sold over 2 million copies worldwide. Bloodborne won several awards and has been cited as a masterpiece, which it is, and is considered to be one of the greatest video games ever made. Some related media and adaptations have also been released, including a card game, board game, and comic book series. Now, by the time I finally got this, so I first rented this from GameFly when it came out, because like, oh, this looks awesome. I didn't really play the other ones, so I didn't really know what I was getting into.
Okay.
So I first, this is way before I got into, like, because my actual first, like, all the way through addiction was Sekiro, and I just got obsessed. Like, it was so hard, and I was like, why do they make these games so hard?
Yeah.
And then I started realizing, oh, I get it. And you just got to get better and better, and it's so gratifying. And you know what's funny? I still haven't beat the final boss in that. I just realized that.
The owl guy?
No, I beat him. No, he's not the final boss. The final boss is a sword saint that actually cuts.
Okay.
Once you beat his first form, he cuts his way out of his great-great-great-grandson, and then you fight him.
Nice.
And it's sick. But anyway, so yeah, then I got Bloodborne again. I was like, let me try Bloodborne after this. Yeah. Because I played Demon Souls. Yeah. And I loved it. And then I was like, I got to this and I fucking loved it. And it's so, dude, it's it's so good. Like the different characters and monsters and just it's so good.
I've watched, and I mean, I can't, it's too hard for, like, I have limited time, so like I don't have the time to sink into this, and my life is repetition, so I can't like fight a boss 15 fucking times, 150 times from what I understand some of these dudes. And but I've seen enough, and I've watched playthroughs, and I have the art book, I have like I haven't played it, but I know enough about it, and I've watched enough playthroughs, because people are like, oh, this is the Lovecraftian masterpiece game. It's this. And then like I watched all these playthroughs, and it's like, oh, the first half of the game is Gothic horror, the second half is Lovecraftian horror, and then looking at all the monsters and stuff, like, this is amazing.
Yeah, and it's once you overpower yourself, like that's the whole thing in these games, like learning your build. Yes. Once you know your build, it's just like, because then dude, Elden Ring came out. Elden Ring is one of the greatest video games of all time. But once you figure out your builds in these From Software games, like you start to go, okay, this is how I fight, this is what I use. And then after a while you'll learn like little hacks, like the one thing I was telling you, where you could just go to these chambers and just keep overpowering yourself, because then the time you get to like any of the guys that you were playing that many times, you just go sink, and they're just like, and you're like, yeah, that's right, but you werewolf pussy,
I've seen it, man. I tried. I've tried a few times, and I was just like, I would get so far, and I'm like, and then you die, and I'm like, no, are you serious? I have to go all the way back. I was like, I can't. And I even tried Demon Souls when they did the re-release for PS5. I was like, I played for like 4 hours one day. I'm like, all right, this is getting pretty cool. And then I got fucking killed, and I realized how far I had to go back. I was like, nope. I was like, nope.
Well, the thing is too, if you get back there, you can get your souls back.
Oh,
that
I know
you
the
lost.
whole.
Yeah.
I know the whole construct of it, but I was like, I can't. I can't. Like, it's too frustrating for me. And I play games to unplug, and just the frustration. I was just like, I almost snapped the controller in half. I was like, nope, I can't have this. I can't fucking have this. Like, nope, I need games that are fun. Whee! I was like, let me know when Bloodborne comes out with an easy mode. Because I just want to like walk around and like look and kill the monsters and like enjoy the stuff, but like there's no like calmness in those games. So
no. You like there's like 3 alleyways you can find to like
exactly.
You know, for a little bit. And then you get to the point where you're like you've run through one area like 47 times to get souls, you know, to like upgrade yourself, and then you're like you know, you just run back through. You're like, come on. And they're just like, go on. They get mad at you. They're like, why is playing him so hard?
Yeah, exactly. No, man, a game that I've never played that I know is a masterpiece because I've watched enough playthroughs and you know, the monster designs are incredible.
Yeah, and the weapons you get, they're so good at like making these weapons in these games. Yeah, like some are super ridiculous, others are just badass, and you're just like, come on, man. Come on.
No, I remember watching somebody had like a there was a trailer for it at the movies one time. That's when I was like, oh, I gotta try this. Then it was like there was a guy fighting, I think it's called like the Cleric Beast or something. It's this big like werewolf looking thing. I was like, that is insane. Yeah. And then they showed a bunch of these other things. I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah, by the time I got to him, like I was just like I powered up. I was like a couple times, you know, walking up to him, like you don't even know what's coming, buddy. Like it's coming for you, pal.
Yep. Very cool. No, that's a great pick, man. And that's
thanks, buddy.
Yeah, that's an accomplishment.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I beat this shit out of it. It was so good. Like the stress levels, it matched like the dynamic of like where I wish I lived. Right. It was just like, oh God, it's so good. Love it.
Oh man, another good pick.
Thanks, my friend.
All right, so my next one is basically I'm going for the whole series here because I can't pick them because they were all such a big part of my childhood. And these games, man, are fucking awesome. I'm talking about the Splatterhouse series. Dude. First released March of 1989. This game is like this was like designed for monster kids. It's like you want to be this guy. You're essentially Jason. Yeah. Walking around these houses with all these just fucked up looking monsters, these like stringy, nasty, gooey creatures. And I mean, I remember when I was a kid, like, I don't know what the plot is, but you're this dude with a 2x4, right? This big muscly dude. You look like Jason Voorhees, but you're in like a prison outfit with like the sleeves ripped off. This big muscly dude. And
before you grab the 2x4, you're just punching them.
You're just punching bats out of the air. There's just zombies. You punch them, they like explode or they just like melt. And then
they become goo.
Yep. And now this is, I'm sure most people know this game, but it was originally an arcade game, but it's one of these side-scrolling types. It has a little bit of platforming because you got to jump in some areas, but you have the weapons that you can pick up, and it was so satisfying. I remember the first time that I had one of the 2x4s, and you hit it, and it hits the screen, and like every time you kill a monster, it has like these like over-the-top like screams and shit. And then you also have the iconic opening theme, which I've heard used in so many like opening like themes for podcasts and shows and stuff, and it was just a masterpiece. And I remember the first time I played it was my uncle had TurboGrafx 16, and he was
same.
Yep. And I was like, and I was like, oh, TurboGrafx 16, what's this? He's like, oh, here's all the games I had, and he had Splatterhouse, and he had I think it was a Zombie Killer, I think it was called. It was a first person. It was one of those arcade shooters. Anyway, and I remember
the best games for TurboGrafx were Splatterhouse, Keith's Courage, Bonk's Adventures, Adventure Island, Jackie Chan's Adventure, and China Warrior. Boom.
Okay.
Still have them. I go back and play them every couple months.
Beautiful. And I was, I remember it saying on the box, and I couldn't remember, so I was looking it up when I was researching here. But there was like a fake parental advisory sticker on the front of the thing, and it said, the horrifying theme of this game may be inappropriate for young children, ... and cowards. Yeah. It was just so good. And it's like I was saying, it was a side-scrolling, arcade, the beat 'em up style, and you control Rick, who is this parapsychology college major, who is trapped inside the West Mansion. After his resurrection by the Terror Mask, Rick makes his way through the mansion, fighting off hordes of creatures in a vain attempt to save his girlfriend Jennifer from her grisly fate. The game is influenced by Western horror films such as Friday the 13th, Evil Dead 2, Poltergeist, Rejuvenatrix, and Parasite, as well as imagery inspired by the works of horror writer H.P. Lovecraft, such as his story Herbert West Reanimator. We'll almost get to that here. But dude, this game was this was like I said, a monster kid's dream. Like, it's just, you're just this dude just fighting monsters, but you're like a monster yourself. And
yeah.
I love how disgusting the game is. Like, it's just, everything is disgusting. The monsters are drippy and gross. You fight a poltergeist. Remember, there's like the room where things are flying at you. You have to like punch the. It's just it's so good.
They ended up making a new one. I think it was like maybe part 4 or for 360, and I never
2010.
played it. I never played it. I regret it.
It was a lot of fun. Like, they amped up the whole thing. You're like super overpowered, and this one even put even more Lovecraft stuff in it. You fight cosmic as well as like gothic type monsters. So much fun. They overpower you. Like everything you punch, blood comes out of everything. You rip dudes in half. It's also like super like the collectibles. So it's the same story. You're like trying to save your girlfriend, but the collectibles in each level are like pieces of pictures that are ripped up, and when you get them all, it's like naked pictures of your girlfriend. It's so over the top. It's so like 80s slasher, but like disgusting. Very Evil Dead, very Friday the 13th, and very Lovecraft. And it's such a good game. The series itself was just like that's a go-to for me, and I hope they do another one because they're just so much fun.
Yeah. Hopefully this helps,
I hope. Yeah, us. We're gonna do it. All right, man. What do you got?
All right, so this one kind of was riding off the coattails of a little movie we covered here on some of our favorite horror movies, Stir of Echoes. When the resurgence of the song "Painted Black" by the Rolling Stones came out. This, my friend, is Twisted Metal Black for PlayStation 2.
Great game.
Twisted Metal Black is a vehicular combat video game developed by Incognito Entertainment and published by Sony Computer Entertainment of America for the PlayStation 2 video game console. Santa Monica Studio assisted on the development. It is a reboot of the Twisted Metal series and was released June 18, 2001. An online-enabled multiplayer-only variant, Twisted Metal Black Online, was released later as a free send-away. Both Twisted Metal Black and Twisted Metal Black Online were reissued as part of Sony's Greatest Hits program, which I actually just ended up downloading it last October. So I got it back, and it's hard to play now. The controls are just it's nothing. It's like nothing like anything you play now. But I'll just give you a little bit of the plot here. In the concept, Twisted Metal Black is a demolition derby that permits the usage of ballistic projectiles. Players choose a vehicle and an arena or a series of arenas in the story mode to engage in battle with opposing drivers. A variety of weapons and upgrades are obtainable by picking up scattered throughout the stages. The objective of the game is to be the last one standing. So basically, in the concept of this one, you start out as these prisoners in basically Arkham Asylum, and you're basically released from there by this guy named Calypso, who's always the bad guy and the boss in all the original Twisted Metals. But basically, he'll grant you one wish, if you win the tournament. All these different people are released from this prison, and they are competing for the one wish. And the best part was it had the Mortal Kombat style stories for each character, right? So when you selected the guy, you got like an intro, you got a couple, segue cinematics, and then you got the ending cinematic. And it was great, man. Over the top, crazy, wacky characters that they added for this one. They made like Sweet Tooth, like super more creepy of, the early 2000s, like that style, and you had... They brought a bunch of the original guys back, but you had new guys like this priest guy that would like launch bodies off his car. And then you'd get to Calypso's one bad guy Minion, who's like the mini boss, who's like a giant like tank monster truck, and Oh man, it was fun times. Then there was a rumor that I was so mad about, that if you left it on or you played it so many hours, you would get Michael Myers in the hospital van. And like then there was like the code for it, and you found it never worked, and that was just such a rumor, and I wanted it so bad because at that point I was like super Michael Myers out, like that was my dude for a while. But yeah, Twisted Metal Black was one of those ones. You know, the theme song is the I see a red door and I want to paint it black. It was just great. Oh,
who's your guy? Who's your go-to guy?
I think probably Mr. Grimm.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of his speed, and it was like the motorcycle,
right?
But I like them all because they all had their different things and their different like power-ups.
Except for Axel, who was just a dude between two tires.
Yeah, well, he had some cool stuff going on with him. But I don't want to say I definitely had. I liked Mr. Grimm just because he, had the skull face paint. Right. Like that was my shit, and I was like, that's what I want to. Yeah, that.
My brother was huge into it, so he had it before I ever played it. But then I was drawn in by Sweet Tooth. I was like, that's a cool character. And whenever I would pick up another version of the game, because I remember playing like the originals for like PlayStation 1, and I was like, every time I would play, I was like, yeah, Sweet Tooth, because like the ice cream truck and the whole thing, like whenever the music would play whenever he was around. But did you hear they got that TV show coming out in July?
Yeah, they just dropped the teaser today, or sent it to me. Okay. Yeah, it's Sweet Tooth fighting what's his name, Anthony Mackie.
Oh yeah, who's he supposed to be?
I don't think anyone. I think he's maybe a new character.
Oh, okay.
And Sweet Tooth basically is voiced by Will Arnett.
Yeah, I saw
that. It seems wacky and goofy, but actually, I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm into it.
No, I'm sure it'll be fun. It's like 10 episodes. Each episode's like a half hour long. I'm sure it'll be like super like fun. I was looking through some stuff out the other day. I was like, as long as like they got like most of the main characters, it should be fun.
Yeah. Yep. There's a point where like Sweet Tooth is about to kill him in the trailer, and he's like, he starts singing the thong song, and Anthony Mackie starts like kind of singing with him. And he's like, you're a fan of the platinum haired god? And he's just like, yeah, man, of course. Like, it's ridiculous, but it looks like it's going to be a good time.
All right, I'm glad they went like humor. They didn't try to just go dark because it would just be ridiculous.
Yeah, it's super. Cool. It's super humorous. Yeah, definitely.
Cool, man. Cool. All right, so my next pick, another big game for me. Recent, came out in 2008, and that is Dead Space.
Right.
And I'm talking more about the first one. Not the other ones weren't great, but the first one was really like the revelation. Like, what a game, and a reinvigoration of survival horror for at least a while. Released in 2008, survival horror game developed by EA Redwood Shores and published by Electronic Arts. Oh, EA. Yeah, right. Released for all the major consoles. It's set on the mining spaceship USG Ishimura, and it's overrun by deadly monsters called necromorphs. So cool. Following the discovery of an artifact called the Marker, the player controls engineer Isaac Clarke as he navigates the spaceship and fights the necromorphs while struggling with growing psychosis. It's so cool. Gameplay has Isaac exploring different areas through its narrative, solving environmental puzzles, and finding ammunition and equipment to survive. Dude, this game, first of all, it was obviously inspired by Event Horizon. I mean, I remember when I first saw it, I was like, oh, these guys loved Event Horizon. And then I was looking into it, like that was one of their main like focuses. Event Horizon, Resident Evil 4, and then 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's like, because the Marker is basically the black monoliths from that movie, and then also, of course, our boy, inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. One of the mechanics about it that I really liked was that the HUD was very unique for its time. Like when he pulls it up, it's like almost like Tony Stark style, where it's like projected right in front of him. And I like that the health bar was displayed on his spine. It was like and I always thought that was really cool. I think the highlight of this is just how gruesome everything is in it. Like it's over the top, like blood and gore, like body horror stuff, and the designs of the necromorphs are just like peak like body horror stuff. And then you have to dismember them. It's not not in the face. You shoot them in the head, it doesn't do anything. You have to so you have this like plasma cutter that you can like change like the angle of, and you try to have to shoot their limbs off. And then there's also the stasis where you could like freeze them basically in space and then cut them up. so good. And they just released this past year the remake, and it's so good. It adds a few things that are a couple new boss fights. It polishes all this stuff up, and it's the only thing I don't like about it is he has a voice in this, where in the last one he didn't talk. It was just you.
Right.
And I felt that made it a little more personal, almost like how like Link never talks. So like you're like
Right.
makes it more like that's you as the character. But
Yeah.
that's a small nitpick. But what a
Yeah.
great story, and it was just completely just like hopeless. Like it's just like everything's rusty, everything's
Yeah.
awful. There's just dead bodies everywhere.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
Chris got it, and he was like, "You got to play this game," and I was like, "Playing my other games." Like, and then one night, like everyone was in bed,
Yeah.
and I was down next to the pool table, and I was playing
Yeah.
it, and I was like, "I'm shooting this thing in the face!" Like I was getting so mad,
Yep.
and like, I was like, "Oh God," like freaking out, and then finally I was like, "Oh, you gotta cut the limbs."
Yeah. Cut the limbs. Yeah. If there's anything, aim for the limbs or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, and that game is rock and roll like right away, and it's so good. And I really like the design of Isaac Clarke's outfit. He just looks like
Yeah.
this weird, like rusty, like skeleton zombie. It's just so cool. The design of that game.
the first
And,
time I saw his mask, though, there's this
Yeah.
movie from like the mid '90s, starring Kevin Sorbo,
Uh-huh.
called Cull the Conqueror.
Yeah, I know it.
And he has a helmet that looks like almost identical to that one. So the first
Okay.
time I saw it, I was like, "Do these guys like Cull the Conqueror a lot? Is that what this
Well,
character design?"
I see what you're saying, yeah, but with the light shining through, and it's got the orange rust color, but then like the light shining through is like a almost like a turquoise, like it's just got a very very strong visuals in that game.
Right.
And then just the monsters, man, so good.
Yeah, no, I'm not hating. I was just like,
No, I hear you.
I was like, where is that design from? That like multi-tiered like design? And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah. Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah, I believe Kevin Sorbo is the director of that game.
Yeah,
He's not an insane person on Twitter now. Probably not.
yeah, right. Oh man. All right, so my last pick here is just like it's the one that made people scared to like play video games in the dark. It was like the first like scary like what is that thing kind of game that I remember. It's Doom, man.
Yep.
Doom. Like 1993 first-person shooter, game developed by ID Software for MS-DOS. Yo, all the kids that listen, you don't even know what that is. Players assume the role of Space Marine, popularly known as Doom Guy, fighting his way through hordes of invading demons from hell. ID began developing Doom after releasing their first-person shooter, Wolfenstein 3D, in 1992. It emerged from a 3D game engine developed by John Carmack, who wanted to create a science fiction game inspired by Dungeons and Dragons and the films Evil Dead 2 and Aliens. The first episode, comprising 9 levels, was distributed freely as shareware. Oh, those are the days.
Yeah.
The full game with 2 further episodes was sold via mail order. An updated version with an additional episode and more difficult levels, the Ultimate Doom, was released in 1995 and sold at retail. Basically, the premise of Doom, for those who don't know, the original premise is scientists were trying to travel to, I believe it was Mars.
Yes.
And instead of opening a gate to Mars to go colonize, they open a gate to hell.
Yeah, it happens,
Yeah, it happens when you're messing with that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So all haywire breaks loose, and then Doom Guy is the one guy that can save everything, and they carried it over in all the sequels and even the newer ones. The newer Dooms are awesome. The
Yeah.
last 2 Dooms that came out for the next gen systems.
Yeah.
You are basically resurrected. Doom Guy is resurrected as like a champion to fight these hordes, and it's
Yeah.
just like all the humans are like gone. There's like this sentient robot who's like enacting like the scientists like will, like we got to get these guys down. You got to bring back to life this Doom Guy. And
Right.
dude, it's once again over the top crazy.
Yeah.
It just inspired every first person shooter. It's the first one, and the monsters in it, go back, look at it, it's hilarious. They're flat and pixelated.
Yep.
But back then the noises, and you're a kid, and these video games weren't like that at the time. Like we didn't have like, it wasn't these beautiful cinematics and all this and these landscapes. No, it was blocks on a wall like a screensaver, and you're going down these hallways that are like stone, and then like It's a scary screensaver for Windows. That's what
Basically,
it is. Yeah. That you can shoot,
Yeah.
and like.
I like that the health bar was shown by like his face getting beat up more and more. I always thought that was cool.
And then if you unlock God mode, his eyes just light up, and you're just like, you're going nuts, man.
And then it's just your hand up, and you're just like shooting like beams and stuff. Yeah, I remember my one friend, because when it came out, we didn't have a computer yet. So I remember like this is grade school, and that's right. Before we didn't have a computer in our home.
They were the size of rooms back then.
Something like that. But I remember the kids I knew, they played it all the time. I'm like, yeah, man, I don't have a computer, so they're just like, tell me about it. I was like, oh, it sounds awesome. And then I finally got to see it, and I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And then years later, I think when I played it, and I was like, all right. And then I played that and like Wolfenstein, like back to back.
Yeah, right.
With like Robo Hitler. So ridiculous.
Yeah, so that's Doom. They made a terrible movie starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
I never even bothered.
I saw it in the theater.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, the girlfriend at the time sucked. But it was terrible. Carl Urban is also
interesting.
The other main character in it.
Okay.
And they kind of have the same premise, and then it just.
Yeah. No, like most video game movies, every once in a while you get a good one, but that's what it is, man.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Another classic pull. Yeah, that's probably the first one, right?
Yeah, I that's why I wanted to close with it, just because it's like because we were talking, and it's like, you know what, you got to go Doom. You have to, because it is that one that we're like,
yeah.
Some developer somewhere was like, you know what, I had this idea.
Yeah,
let's make them fight hell monsters. And you have guns.
Yeah. Who could say no to that?
Yeah. Is there anything more American than fighting hell monsters with guns?
I can't think of any.
Hard pressed to find something, buddy.
It's true. All right, man. Well, for my last pick, this is once again, just like you're saying, you had to put in there. This one has to be in here because in 1989, one of the most frustrating games ever made was released because of gameplay vagaries by LGN, and I'm talking about Friday the 13th for NES. Dude.
Yeah.
Now, I actually liked this game when I was a kid because it was like you couldn't win, but it was almost like, yeah, you're not supposed to. Like every once in a while, Jason would show up and, oh shit, there's Jason. You're just like, oh fuck. Like, you don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Run.
Yeah. And it was just, and it was almost like, that was my first introduction to the character because I wasn't allowed to watch the movies at the time because I was, I was a kid. And I remember my cousins had the game, like, and they didn't know what the fuck they were doing either. Like, you just gotta hit him with rocks and shit, and then he runs away. And so the player controls one of 6 camp counselors, and they all have like varying levels of like speed. They can row because you can go on the lake, and then their jumping ability. And it's a classic side scroller because it was for NES. Yeah. So the counselors start with this like rock attack that like arcs. And so the goal is to find and defeat Jason 3 times. Along the paths, players find cabins, lake, caves, and wooded areas, with all but the cabins having enemies such as zombies, crows, and wolves attacking the player. Which is like, come on, man! I got to deal with Jason, now I got to deal with the wildlife and zombies. So players can upgrade their weapons upon finding a new one. A timed alarm appears at certain intervals, requiring players to find Jason before he kills one or more of the children or another counselor. Using the map, players must navigate their way to Jason's location or switch to the counselor being attacked and defeat him. If they do not make it there in time, Jason will kill the counselors or some of the children. So this is very confusing now because nothing makes sense in the game. Like if you walk one way, the map will show you that you're actually going a different way. Like it's completely counterintuitive. Like the game is people have called it a broken game, but it's just not a very well explained game. That was the problem. But now you have dudes that like speed run that game in like 5 minutes. Yeah, it's like, oh, you just need to do this, and this. You like, find the lighter, find the knife, and then find the. It's like just, and it's very simple. And then you can find Jason's mother, and But back in the day, there was no game guides. We had no idea what the hell to do. So I remember just putting it on sometimes and just being like, well, I'm just going to run around here and try to fight Jason a few times, and then I'm just going to stop when I've had enough. In the game, whenever upon nearing Jason's location, Jason may appear on the path or in the lake and attack the player. When inside a cabin, Jason, you fight him, and it's almost like Mike Tyson's Punch Out. It's just like
remember
that.
Mike Tyson's Punch Out. I have to play both of them to completion every 6 months.
Oh, well, perfect. Well, that's how you fight him if you encounter in one of the cabins. And then there's also this like whole thing where you can like light fireplaces inside the cabins, which seem not to really do much. But if you light all the fireplaces, a flashlight and a torch weapon are available, which like the flashlight is so you can go to the cave area so you can fight the mother, but you don't really have to do that. It's so weird, man. Then there's like these notes that you can find that like give you like clues, but some of the clues they're wrong. They actually tell you the wrong thing. They rushed this out, and LJN was like notorious for being one of the worst companies to make Nintendo games, because at the time, man, it was the Nintendo boom. They were just getting them out. They're like, Nintendo game, get it out. And at the time, some of these games were like $60-$70 for the cartridge. Like back then in like '89.
Yeah. It's wild because what they did was like Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah.
Completely different game. After the success of the first one, they just took some Japanese game and they just re-rendered the character. So I know exactly.
Started off as a completely different game. Yep. But I love that game. Mario 2 is wonderful.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, so and then real quick, just in the objective of the game is to survive for 3 days and 3 nights while attempting to find and kill Jason. Players may battle Jason's mother, who is hidden in the locker room in the cave, which is very cool. She's like this Medusa-like head. It almost looks like the Medusa from Castlevania. She's just this floating head that you have to she like swoops down and does this like attack and stuff. And yeah, man, it's a very, very confusing game, and like I feel that like people didn't know how to beat this game till like the early 2000s, and like when the internet came around, then people were like, well, they sat down, they pulled their information, and
they pulled their resources. Yep.
So I think this is a very recent thing that people could beat it, because I remember watching these videos like within the last 10 years. I was like, well, I'm gonna try again, and I want to beat it. And now I can beat it, and it's really not even hard if you just know what you're doing.
Right.
But the best thing to come out of this game was, in my opinion, the 8-bit Jason design, because people love it. The turquoise and purple Jason, people just love it. And I have a love-hate relationship with the game, but it takes me back to those days, and this is like one of the first games I ever had for Nintendo, and it scared the shit out of me sometimes, Jason showing up, and it was almost like, this is what you're supposed to do. You go after Jason, you can't really kill him, but just like, ooh, run around the lake, here he comes, I'm dead. And
those games, games back in those days, like the people that made the game didn't even watch the movie. Like they had no, they were just like, who's this guy? Yeah, put him in there. What is he gonna mom? Yeah, she's a snake.
Yeah,
she's a snake creature.
Yep. Yeah. So, and every game has to have bats and skeletons as like low level level 1 bad guys. That's the same thing like you're talking about too with the wildlife. It's like back then, like the baddies in those games were just like random things like wolves and bats, spiders.
What scares kids? What scares kids? Those are bad. Those are the bad guys.
Yeah,
those are the bad guys. Throw them in there.
Yeah, man. But
like he's like, Bill, you rendered some 8-bit bats, skeletons, wolves, raccoons. You got raccoons? Throw them in. Come on.
Yeah.
Bring them over here. Put them on your floppy disk. Plug them in. We're loading them up.
Yep. So, yeah, man, that's my last pick. There were a few others that I didn't make the cut, but those are my favorites out of all time, I would say. In the horror theme. I almost included Castlevania, but I think it's a little more of an adventure than it is horror. But,
right. Maybe in part 2 we'll get into all that.
Yeah.
But no, I think we did justice to the horror game community. There's honorable mentions. There's ones that have potential. There's letdowns, but we're just sticking to the gold here.
Yeah, brings me back to the days of drinking Jolt Cola and staying up till like 2-3 o'clock in the morning and just playing fucking video games on summer vacations.
Hell yeah,
the golden era.
Yeah, the golden era when we were gods amongst men.
Yeah, we were kings.
Yeah. Well, you totally were, man. I still love those memes where it's like, it's Saturday. You've ordered a pizza and a Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
You have a full bag of chips. It's 8 p.m. Yep. It's 2023. You're 42.
You just booted up your N64 and you're about to play GoldenEye or whatever.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, we are of that generation where like it's we're gonna be playing video games as old men. Like that's just what it is.
No, hey, my mom played video games for a long time. I mean, she got like a crazy high score on Duck Hunt, and then like we have it somewhere. She took a picture of the TV screen. She didn't think people would believe her, and she has like this insane screen. I was like, we should look this up. You might have like the high score of all time, but I just never got around to it. And then I spent a lot of time with my one aunt, and she played Final Fantasy. She was like a Final Fantasy nut.
That's awesome.
It's it's in the blood, and all my kids love video games. So it's I'm like, have you tried this yet?
Yeah, hell yeah. Hopefully one day I can impart my video game wisdom on the children, because I'm a bit of a freak. I'm a bit of a freak.
Oh, you're definitely dedicated.
Yeah. Well, it's like I get obsessive about like no. Someone out there can do this. I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like with speed runs. Like I speed run like Super Punch Out. Like, sit with me 20 minutes. I'll have the whole game beat. It's nuts.
Cool. Nice.
Nuts.
Sick, bro.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's all we got for this episode of Other Dangerous Podcast. Any closing statements? Any?
No. You're never too old to play some video games. So this summer, if you haven't played some in a while, go ahead, put something on. Have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, I second that. Dig back in. If you haven't in a while and you're like, I'm getting the hankering, dig back in. Find something that's right up your alley. There's a million different games out there now. Find something. Blow off some steam, man. Chill out.
And another closing statement. Shout out to my cousin Robbie and his friend, another guy named Rob. They just built me an old school gaming computer. Has all the emulators. Like it has every system from Atari.
Is it a Raspberry Pi?
I think that's the base. They based it on that, but then it has arcade games on there too.
Hell yeah! Yep.
And he was just showing me all the stuff that's on there, and like I'm waiting for it. They're almost done with it. I'm just like, this is amazing. It has it has the library of all those old school games. Like it has every single game. I'm like, what am I going to do with myself?
Oh, I know what you're going to do. You're going to do what I do. Like I told you, every couple months, you're going to dig in. Can't figure out what to play. You're going to play, and you're going to end up just playing Super Punch Out again.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing, man, because I feel like I always come back to classics. Like like I'll play like I love lots of new games. Like I've when I can, and I always find myself coming back to the first Castlevania on NES just to blow off steam.
Right. Well, after I played Symphony of the Night on legally, I was like, oh, this is great. I loved it to death. And then I got into my like side scroller platformer kind of mode, and I went back to the other ones, and I was just like, it's not the same right now, because I just played Symphony of the Night for the first time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like, you can't really jump backwards after doing that, after grinding that one out. So it's like,
that's a hell of a game. I remember the first time I played that one. Whew.
Yeah, it's definitely a hell of a game. And then I got like, when I got my cape that changed color, I was like, oh, you're all done. Yeah. I was like, you're all done. What are you gonna do? Yep. Dracula, I was like, one move. Claws swirling.
Yep.
Whatever, dude. Sit down. Dracula.
It's funny too, because like once you've gotten way through that game, like Dracula's not even that hard, because you're so overpowered. If you get all the stuff, it's not even like right video game victory, sir.
Absolutely. All right, guys, well, for this episode of Other Dangerous Podcast, I'm Ken James,
and I'm Jason McKittrick,
and as always, have a spooky evening. Thank you for listening to Other Dangerous Podcasts. Have you encountered the other dangers? If so, you can email us at otherdangerouspodcast@gmail.com. And if you'd like to have a discussion about the paranormal, you can find us at Other Dangerous Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. There you can find submitted pictures, videos, and artwork from listeners. We are now streaming on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else podcasts are streamed. And after listening, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to bring you the other dangers.